thank you, as always, for spending a little time with us this time around. It's on the 12th day of February, a cold, blustery, snowy day out there today. A lot of students and faculty with a snow day today. Not so much tomorrow, not in the forecast. We'll see calm, clear, albeit cold conditions for your Friday. But just a break in between another big winter hit that we're focusing on now for the weekend. As for today's weather, a winter weather advisory set to expire at the 8 o'clock hour. And from there, we'll see all of those scattered snow showers and blustering winds start to calm down and leave us with conditions in the upper 20s, barely the upper 20s for your Friday. And I think we'll see a little sunshine tomorrow. We'll also see wind chills. That's the big part of the immediate forecast. Wind chill factors tonight and tomorrow down into the single digits, close to 0 for tonight, and in the low single digits for tomorrow. And then it's on to another bout of snow and maybe some rain at the onset for Saturday's forecast. I'll tell you about what you can expect to see Valentine's Day as we're a little closer and have a little better picture as to what Mother Nature has in store. And that's not the only winter weather hit, of course, that we've been talking about now for days. We'll get to that in more detail. Headlines tonight include Senator Brandon Smith in a court appearance earlier today. Also, several details that I'll be bringing you, I think, exclusively for the most part. I don't think you're going to hear them anywhere else as to why former Morgan County Judge Executive Tim Conley has appealed his sentence. And I got some weather-related things to see and talk about, and a whole lot of other news to bring you an important recall I want to pass along in a few moments as well. Before we get to all that, and a calendar full of announcements, maybe a birthday or two, I'm not quite sure. One report from our nation's capital, and that's where Governor Beshear's decision to expand Kentucky's Medicaid program has been assessed monetarily with a new study that is out this week. The study says that Kentucky's next governor will not have any trouble finding money to pay for that expansion because of what it terms as an explosion of new health care spending. It's going to generate some $1.7 billion in savings that same time period. But the survey out says that it's going to cost taxpayers $1.1 billion by 2021. The expenses, says the study, account for the cost of new enrollees and federally mandated benefit changes beginning in 2017. That's the first year that taxpayers in the Commonwealth have to start paying for the expansion. The governor said the study removes the final reason that critics have for not supporting the Federal Affordable Care Act. Now, the amount that state officials paid for the study by a consulting firm out of Louisville was not reported. However, $1.1 billion in the study was released as the cost to taxpayers for the expansion under the direction of Governor Beshear. Senator Brandon Smith, who came under fire after his lawyers filed a motion to have his charge of driving under the influence, an aggravated offense because he refused to take a breathalyzer test, dismissed based on a century-old law in Kentucky's books. Since, of course, as we have told you and followed up, decided not to forego that route and take his case to court. He has now entered an official plea in the matter, and he's also lost his driver's license for the next few months.
And, of course, all this comes after he was arrested after being stopped for speeding at the end of the very first day of the legislative session on January the 6th. Stopped by a Kentucky State Police trooper for that speeding infraction. He was believed to be under the influence and then refused to take a breathalyzer test and was jailed in on an aggravated offense of driving under the influence. Since deciding to take his case to court, he had a court appearance set for today at which he officially entered a not guilty plea and requested a jury trial. The judge advised him that a jury trial would not be possible due to calendar or scheduling conflicts to possibly around the month of April or thereafter, and that as a fact or a matter of fact of refusing to take a breathalyzer test on the night of the arrest, he would have to turn over his driver's license until the matter is settled in court. Smith's attorney responded that he didn't actually refuse to take a breathalyzer test, just that he was trying to reach his attorney by telephone beforehand and that time ran out, so to speak, and he was unable to take the test after not being able to reach his attorney before doing so. His next court date has not been set. It's only expected right now that the case will still be heard, possibly by a jury, sometime around April.
Back to local headlines in just a second. I've got a recall for you, and I'm just about willing to bet that I have at least a couple of these in my home. Kidd, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, K-I-D-D-E, and I may not, is perhaps one of the most popular brand of fire extinguishers that I am aware of. Millions and millions of them sold annually, and I've got a few in my residence, and I think maybe even a couple of small ones in an automobile or two. But they have received so far a little less than a dozen reports of fire extinguishers failing to discharge, and that's not a good thing when you need one. So they've issued a recall tonight. While those 12 accounts, 11 or 12 accounts, have been reported with no injuries, it has resulted in the recall of millions of fire extinguisher units in various different size, shapes, and color.
We're talking about 4.6 million fire extinguishers sold in the United States and nearly a couple 100,000 sold in Canada. Being recalled because there's a faulty valve component that can cause the disposable fire extinguishers, these are disposable, not the refillable kind, not to fully discharge when the lever is repeatedly pressured and released during a fire emergency. And of course that poses all sorts of risk, including injury. They have a toll-free number set up. I'll give you some information. We'll actually on the right of your screen go to www.cpsc.gov, which I always recommend there. They've got a complete list of model numbers. The recall involves 31 different models of kid disposable fire extinguishers with the Zytel black plastic valves. The recall extinguishers are red, white, or silver and either ABC or BC rated. The ratings can be found at the right of the nameplate. Manufacturer dates included in the recall are July the 23rd of 2013 through October the 15th of 2014. So if you've had one a little longer than that, or maybe a lot longer than that, it's not involved in the recall. Keep in mind, if you've had one a long time, it needs to be tested. And if you go to cpsc.gov, you can find out more about the date codes, the model numbers in the recall, and much more. They have received 11 reports of the recalled fire extinguishers failing to go off or discharge as was expected. No injuries reported, as I said, but consumers should immediately contact the company for replacement if you have one. And if you have one that may have been purchased from Home Depot, Menards, Walmart, and a long list of other department, home, and hardware stores all across the nation. Remember, from August of 2013 through November of 2014, anywhere from $18 to $65 or even $200 for the model XL5MR. So, better safe than sorry. Go to cpsc.gov, check out the model number, and see if you have one that's recalled. To get high-speed internet on their state-of-the-art fiber optic network for all of your home and business solutions, or to watch TV without a contract on over 200 digital channels with superb quality, or stay connected with family and friends with 24/7 telephone service you can always depend on, contact Foothills Broadband today. Or just click on their link to the right to find out how they're working to provide the latest in communications at affordable prices with exceptional service at Foothills Broadband.
After refusing to resign from his position, still accepting his salary as Morgan County Judge Executive, and then actively running for re-election even after he officially pled guilty to one charge of mail fraud as it related to a kickback scheme with a Sagersville construction company, federal prosecutors sought for a stiffer sentence for former Morgan County Judge Executive Tim Conley, who was just sentenced recently to a little more than 7 years in prison on that single count of mail fraud as it related to that kickback scheme. He has since filed an appeal in the last few days, not appealing his mail fraud conviction, mind you. He is, while still scheduled to report to prison on March the 24th, appealing his sentencing.
In a 16-page redacted sentencing memorandum, Conley outlines his reasons for a lesser prison term, and he's also fired his attorneys in a separate filing that we'll talk about in just a few moments. As you may recall, Conley was sentenced to officially a little more than 7 years, actually 87 months in federal prison, of which he'll have to serve at least 85%, and also ordered to pay restitution of about $130,000. In his memorandum filing, he says on August the 26th, he entered a guilty plea to that one count of mail fraud and has no objections to the pre-sentence report and now faces sentencing. He does say, however, in imposing punishment, the court must craft a sentence that is sufficient but not greater than necessary to comply with the law, and he reiterates his objection to the government's motion for an upward departure or variance. Contrary to the government's arguments, an upward departure, he says, is inappropriate, and a sentence below the applicable guidelines range will be sufficient insufficient to satisfy the requirements of law in this case. As a result, he respectfully requests the court apply downward variance at sentencing based on the nature and circumstances of his offense, his background, and other characteristics. And he's also asked the court to recommend that he serve any period of incarceration at a facility as near as possible to his lifelong home of Morgan County. It also says that Connolly's criminal conduct consisted of soliciting and receiving kickbacks from only a single contractor in return for assistance in securing contracts for those bridges done in Morgan County. The scheme at issue, he says, was relatively unsophisticated and limited in scope. It also says Connolly ever received any inappropriate or improper payments from any other kickbacks paid by Kenneth Gamble, and while this case has attracted a significant amount of media attention, Connolly's transgressions were not as egregious as those in positions of trust recently prosecuted for corruption in the state of Kentucky. It also says that unlike public officials who have engaged in vote buying or voter suppression, Connolly's offense did nothing to interfere with the democratic process, nor did he become wealthy by virtue of his crime. And the restitution obligation included as part of his sentence will be a tremendous burden on his family for years to come, and that all of the bridge contracts were completed as planned. It also says he wishes to note that his limited education and political experience initially made it difficult for him to understand how some of his actions could constitute a violation of federal law. And unlike many elected officials in eastern Kentucky, no one in Connolly's family ever held public office before he was elected as judge executive. He says his family has always been his primary concern, and that because he has spent his entire life in a sparsely populated and close-knit community, he always considers his friends and neighbors to be members of his broader family as well. And then it goes on for a few pages listing several occasions over the course of several years where he has donated substantial amounts of money to various individuals or causes throughout the community, talking about a $5,000 a year, roughly, total for various organizations to begin with, about a $3,500 donation to the My Lord Has the Answer ministry, church that would use the money to help utilize those funds rather to help the needy throughout eastern Kentucky. It also outlines on a substantial amount of his own money being used, including a significant portion of the proceeds of his criminal activity being donated to the Lacey Creek Church of Christ, when he donated $10,000 personally to assist families with their utility bills following the tornado. It lists that when Coach Calipari came to West Liberty to raise money for the tornado, he contributed $2,000 to that fund, that he's paid for the annual Derby Day breakfast for the community senior citizens at $1,000 a year, and then when he learned that the county couldn't provide funds for an appreciation dinner for everyone who helped with the tornado cleanup, well, he paid for that himself. $15,000 was the cost of that, and that he also had helped many residents that were diagnosed with cancer or were sick, often paying a few to several $100s a month. And it goes on. $1,000 on 3 separate occasions to someone who couldn't afford food or housing, $2,000 to help someone get back on their feet, another $2,000 to help some folks in the community, $500 for someone to help make ends meet, $2,500 for another individual, $2,500 for another individual, and some $6,000 to refurbish a tractor to use for the Relay for Life events. All these reasons, it says, using his own money, and of course money it says that he gained illegally through those kickback schemes, are reason and justifiable reasons that he should be sentenced to a lesser term in prison.
More news in a moment. Right now, let's find out what's happening on tonight's Magoffin Farm Bureau community calendar.
A reminder about the annual Sweetheart Banquet at the Burning Fork Community Church. It's this Saturday, Valentine's Day, from 3 to 8:30. Call and make reservations. It's highly suggested. It's also suggested I get the number on the screen for you to do that. It's 349-6400, 6400. It's a big, wonderful meal. Salad, steak, or chicken, fixed any way you want it, baked potato, all the fixings, drinks, a dessert room. They'll have so many brought in, and it's just a wonderful first-class event and service in a beautiful setting just for your sweethearts, if you're taking the family, for everyone for Valentine's Day. It's this Saturday at the church. Speaking of church events, Kearney Free Will Baptist is having a family movie night this Valentine's Day, starting at 6 p.m. They'll be showing Fireproof. Admission is obviously free, and they just hope that you'll join them in attendance. Family movie night at Kearney Free Will Baptist this Saturday at 6 for a special viewing of Fireproof. I've got another church event for you over the course of the weekend. This one for Sunday from Emmanuel Baptist Church on Pleasant Hill. They want to invite everyone to Friend Day this Sunday. Worship service begins at 11 that morning, and dinner will follow the service. Bring a friend to Emmanuel Baptist Church this Sunday with services beginning at 11 and dinner to follow thereafter. I also have a reminder for you, or an announcement, because I'm telling you for the first time, as I've just learned, the Sayersville City Council meeting for this coming Monday the 16th has been rescheduled and has now been set for Monday the 23rd. And, of course, we'll have coverage of that thereafter. And that's all I've got for calendar announcements on this Thursday, with the exception just to remind you that if you've got a birthday, anniversary, or a special announcement you need heard, send it to us. Any way you want to get it here, we'll do it for free and let everyone know what you've got planned. Now for funeral announcements brought to you by the McGoffin County Funeral Home. We begin with those to be held in honor of 82-year-old Richard Lee Smithers of Falcon Road in Sayersville. Smithers passed away on Tuesday, February the 10th. He's preceded in death by his wife, Jolene Atkins Smithers, and one son, Danny Lee Smithers. We also know that, per an announcement from the Sayersville Funeral Home, he's left to mourn by his daughter, Angela Slusher, sons Eddie Dean, Jeffrey Cliff, and Lonnie Ray Smithers. Funeral services for Mr. Smithers once again to be held tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon from the Sayersville Funeral Home, with burial to follow afterwards at the Highlands Memorial Park in Staffordsville. Visitation, of course, continues for the rest of this evening. 38-year-old Billy Wayne Caudill of Lexington, formerly of McGoffin County, passed away on the 10th, the son of Carl and Patricia Caudill. And besides his parents, he's survived by two sons, Dion Xavier and Joshua Eric Caudill, and a brother, Barrett. Visitation is this evening, and up until services, they've been set for tomorrow at 2, all of which from the McGoffin County Funeral Home Chapel. Burial will follow after at the Ward Cemetery here in Sayersville. And we've learned of the passing this evening of 86-year-old Molly Montgomery of Sayersville. We're told by the McGoffin County Funeral Home that she passed away on yesterday's date, and arrangements are still incomplete at this hour, but to be announced soon by their facility. I'll be right back. To get high-speed internet on their state-of-the-art fiber optic network for all of your home and business solutions, or to watch TV without a contract on over 200 digital channels with superb quality, or stay connected with family and friends with 24/7 telephone service you can always depend on, contact Foothills Broadband today. Or just click on their link to the right to find out how they're working to provide the latest in communications at affordable prices with exceptional service at Foothills Broadband.
As is the case every day, there's never enough time to get everything done and on as I would like. Always more news than time. It's a good problem to have, mind you, in this profession. So I don't have the following information typed up with any graphics, but I do want to pass along to you. And with the fact that a lot of classes were called off today, some scheduled high school basketball games have been rescheduled. In fact, I think the Hornets and Lady Hornets had a doubleheader tonight, and those games have been canceled. So real quickly, just to kind of breeze through the schedule for the area teams as we are down to the last few games and home stretch of the regular season schedule. The Johnson Central Lady Eagles will be in action tomorrow night. They're at Paintsville tomorrow night. There are some games tonight, mind you, and one of those will be the boys team. They are at Ashland Blazer tonight, speaking of Johnson Central and the Golden Eagles and Coach Tommy McKenzie. As for the Hornets, the Lady Hornets have been set now to take on Breathitt County tomorrow night on the road. The game for tonight was canceled, and the boys' game tonight has also been canceled. They will be home tomorrow night hosting Sheldon Clark, and that will take away, it looks as though, I believe they had 3 home games after losing tonight, and I think it was Prestonsburg, if I'm not mistaken. They will lose that game off the regular season schedule. Now, only 2 home games left for McGoffin County, and that will be tomorrow night at Sheldon Clark, and then they get a few days off until the 19th. They'll host Morgan County. Speaking of Morgan County and the Lady Cougars, They are in action tonight at home, hosting East Carter. That game's still scheduled, from what I understand. The boys team down in Morgan County and Coach Perry, they'll be off tonight, tomorrow night, and they'll take on Round County on the road Valentine's Day, Saturday, 7:30. And for Paintsville and the Lady Tigers, they are, as I said, going to be hosting Johnson Central tomorrow night. And the Tigers and Coach Runyon will be on the road. No, they're at home tonight. Belfry is coming to Paintsville tonight. That game is still going on as was originally scheduled. Before I talk about your weather, here's a little weather pick that I picked up out in Sagersville earlier today that we thought we would include as a prelude to tonight's forecast.
I know he's a common fixture in Sagersville. I also know he's H.C. Prater's pup. I can't think of his name, but I know that pretty much everyone knows this dog's name, and it's just escaping me at this point. But in the back of his pickup truck, parked out in front of the courthouse earlier today, he was enjoying a little light snowfall, and the cold was really not an issue. Couldn't help but take me back to the days when I had some big old lazy St. Bernards who would enjoy doing the same thing. Thought it made for an interesting pick and something to maybe lessen the blow of the following forecast, where we're going to wind down this Thursday with 10 degrees. Factor in a wind out there from the northwest, 6 to 18. That puts wind chill factors at around -1, or actually that's a dash, right around 1. Does it matter if it's -1 or 1? It's supposed to be just a dash and not just a... Nevertheless, you get my drift, right? The snow is ending, but the cold conditions are not. Wind chill factors are something you'll have to deal with. Mostly cloudy skies tonight. Will start to give way to some clearing skies tomorrow. Here's your Friday, partly sunny, but check it out. Daytime highs in the 20s at best, 27, I think, a low of 20 tomorrow night. We're still going to have winds, and tomorrow from the northwest, around 6 to 13 gusts, upwards of 18 miles. No, that's tonight. Tomorrow, similar winds, a little less maybe, though, southwest 5 to 7 in the evening. Wind chill values tomorrow, nevertheless, as I get my wind directions right and speed, will be down around 10 degrees or less for some of us, especially early. Keep that in mind. But it's going to be partly sunny, mind you. It's just going to be cold. Valentine's Day, no sunshine in sight. For Saturday, a chance of rain and snow showers before 1, then some rain and snow maybe thereafter. We're going to be flirting right around the freezing mark for the viewing area, so that's where we're going to teeter-totter between that rain and snow before everything has a chance to change back over to snow on Saturday night. Winds upwards of 23-mile-per-hour gusts Saturday night. That means it's going to have another wind chill factor as we'll see temperatures get down to around 5 degrees on your Saturday, single digits again on Sunday for nighttime lows, a high of 20 on Sunday, another Arctic hit, low of 6 degrees, mostly sunny, but definitely clear and brutally cold on your Sunday. We'll start off Monday of next week, Washington's birthday, chance of some rain and snow, partly sunny, and 31. Then we'll get into another big hit, another big winter weather maker thereafter. I don't have time to talk about it now, but it's in the forecast, and we'll have a little more on that tomorrow as we wrap up this week at Your News Today. For now, thank you for watching, and have a good night.